Hi guys, I'm Haley Burns, and I want to tell you my story of how I came to put my trust in Jesus Christ, and how through His strength I live my life. I love to use the analogy that it's kind of like learning how to ride a bike. Your first steps are to start with training wheels, which is how I started my walk with Jesus. I grew up in a Christian home with super supportive parents who brought me to church every week and taught me how to pray and live the way God wanted me to live. The second step is usually taking off the training wheels and trying to figure out all this stuff on your own. In the case of my walk with faith, I headed into the stage in high school where it was my decision whether or not I was going to continue growing in my faith. I decided to go with my church on a missions trip to sort of figure out how to walk with the Lord without my parents really telling me how to do things, but I never learned how important it is to dig into God's Word while I was there. This trip taught me how fortunate I should be for the things that I have in my life, and the explanation I have for those things is all because of Jesus Christ. When riding a bike, you eventually become confident riding without training wheels, and you feel like you have things under control. For me, I hit this at the end of my sophomore year of high school, where I felt I knew the Lord pretty well and His plans for my life. I was to play hockey and do well in school so that I could follow along the path of having a typical American dream. The first fall after thinking you are confident on your bike is pretty scary. First fall for me was when I learned I could no longer play hockey because I had gotten 4 concussions in the past 2 years, and it was no longer at my best interest to play hockey. I didn't know where I would find my identity anymore. Hockey had been my life, but it was also something that had taken away a lot of my time that I needed to spend with the Lord. My concussions had brought on serious depression and anxiety that I still deal with till this day. Most people stop riding their bikes for a time period. I took a break from my relationship with the Lord too. I walked away from Him because I was consumed by my anxiety of not being wanted in this world by people, which reflected a past dating relationship that I thought revolved around the Lord. I could be confident in being vulnerable with Him, but then He began to take advantage of things I was vulnerable about and use them as manipulation for taking part in things that pleased Him. I was afraid of my weaknesses coming to surface, so I did what He wanted. This made me feel very unworthy of love and respect and tore me away from God even more. I began to think that the only way that I would receive love and respect was to perform the way that people wanted me to. I became a huge people pleaser and no longer found my identity in the Lord, but in other people. I would do everything I could to be there for everyone, to make life more fun and enjoyable. My parents were always willing to let me host friends for hangouts, and I knew my parents wanted me to learn how alcohol affected me before I headed to college, so I began drinking and would provide alcohol for my friends too. I started to drink more and more as I approached the summer before heading to college. I would get wasted and never had blacked out until August, but right before coming to UMD. At that point, my 2 best friends were really worried, and they brought it to my parents' attention and just letting them know that I was getting out of hand. My parents were worried to send me to college, but trusted the Lord would work in my life. I got to college and began drinking every day, and found my identity in who I was as a drunk girl. I'd be so hungover that I would even make my friends go turn in my papers to my professors for me. Everyone knew me, but not in the way that I had hoped. The next step in riding your bike is taking it out and trying it again. After a long break, it's a scary thing at first, and you're pretty wobbly, but you still have to try. I got my bike out again and began going to crew as a way to seek God again. I was living a double life, though. I'd go to crew and then back to my dorm and get drunk with my friends. I didn't know where this bike ride was taking me until I headed to Fall Getaway. Right before this retreat weekend, I had just moved into a new place on campus and was excited to get away and spend time with my new friends and hopefully reconnect with the Lord because I knew I had been lost. At Fall Getaway, I was surrounded by amazing and gracious people who filled me with love, and I began to pray to the Lord, asking Him to forgive me for walking away from Him. I wanted to surrender my entire life to Him and knew I couldn't live the life I was living any longer because of how much He had done for me. I needed to go all in with the Lord, stop living a double life, and start following Jesus more fully in my life. The Lord reminded me that He died, sacrificing Himself for my sins, that they were washed away, and that I may live a life full of forgiveness and love through Him. I knew I had to come back to school and change my ways. I began to learn that the way to knowing the Lord was digging into His Word, praying and talking about it with others. I learned it's okay not to be okay, but what's not okay is settling there. I need to continue to trust the Lord with my struggles, and I need to continue to seek people who can point me to the Lord. My walk with the Lord hasn't been easy, and I don't expect it to be because now I'm called to live my life as a reflection of the perfect Jesus Christ. I know I will never reach perfection in this world, but in God's eyes, I'm perfect and worth dying.